We are now live. Hello. Let's just get started then. Currently waiting. Alright, we find our first opponent for the day. And let's try to get some wins. Alright, this is fine. Not really interactive, but opponent has Kahira, so they're probably blue-white control. So just infinite value seems good. Alright, not blue-white control, but we rip a duress on one. Literally like one of the best possible draws. Alright. They're not blue-white control, but they are some form of control. I'm going to take Extinction Event. So they're what, black-white then? Black-white missing white sources. Alright. I could play out the fear of missing out and just get Fatal Pushed. I think that's fine, because I need to hit third land drop. Now, what am I getting rid of? Second Unholy Annex, or Fable, or Duress. I think it's probably Duress. Alright. Well, if I hit my third land drop naturally, I just play infinite 3-drops and win somehow, probably. If I don't hit my third land drop naturally, I'm in serious trouble. Alright, worst possible scenario, it's a dead card. Alright. Let's float a mana. They did this in my end step, sadly, which means I don't get to play a 3-mana spell. Alright, end the turn. And they cling to dust my duress. Doesn't really matter, they just draw a card. Good old cycling. Alright, we got there. Now, I think we play Fable first, because it gives us the highest chance of hitting 4th land drop next turn. And also potentially gets, like, March of Wretched Sorrows out. And we also have no way of getting a demon at the moment, which makes the Unholy Annexes slightly awkward. They killed our Mutavault, which is a shame. But not entirely unexpected. Like, it's a creature against a control deck. Sort of have to expect it to get destroyed at some point. Let's get rid of Torch, and we don't need 3 copies of Fable of the Mirror Breaker, let's be real. So they have March of Wretched Sorrow, which would deal with Shieldred. Alright. Someone is having a lot of fun with their car outside. Sorry about that. So I'm just gonna continue playing Fables, making Goblin Shamans. Alright, they have a Blast Zone on 3, which is going to blow up both of my Fables. And they Fatal Push the Goblin Shaman. Alright, they're just mono-black control. I don't know how they ever expect to cast Kahira, but that's probably fine. Alright. Now, hopefully... So they have March, which could kill the Blade of the Oni, but can't kill the Mutavault unless that is a black spell. So let's actually just, like, try to attack with the Mutavault. Oh, Summoning Sickness. Whatever. Doesn't matter. Alright, they have a Bitter Triumph. which is annoying, but not the end of the world. Alright, so they've used their Bitter Triumph, which is actually huge. So, March of Wretched Sorrows does not easily kill a demon. So I'm just gonna make one of these guys. And if they kill it, then they kill it. Alright, they top decked another Bitter Triumph. Understandable. But they are one-for-oneing me while I have an Unholy Annex out, which seems bad for them. Alright, so now I have 6 mana, which means I can play Blade of the Oni and Shieldred this turn. Which means, regardless of what they do, I am not going to be losing life this turn. They can March of Wretched Sorrow the Shieldred with all of their mana. But then the Blade sticks, and my Unholy Annex is working. And I have 2 more Unholy Annexes where this one came from. Alright, they escape Cling to Dust for a redraw with a Shieldred in play. Should have done that in response. Now I think the game is probably just over. Like, they're taking Shieldred triggers when they didn't have to. They've basically lost. Yep. Alright. Mono black control. Fatal pushes out. Torches out. Go for the throat out. I guess Withering Torment can stay. Nah, Withering Torment out. Let's bring in all the big value plays. And they have like Mirrex tokens and stuff, so copies of Anger and Extinction Event probably going to be acceptable. Better than single target removal anyway, I think. And they might have creatures that I just never saw. It's possible they just drew like purely the removal half of their deck. Alright, this hand is great. It's a slower matchup. Or no, they don't have creatures. They have Kahira. So they have like a couple creatures at most. Alright, this hand is great. We have Liliana, Fable, Unholy Annex, Shieldreds. Alright, Blast Zone, Maze Mind, Tome. I'm going to play an untapped land. So Blast Zone on 3 is good against me. So I'm just going to resolve Unholy Annex early this time. And they're probably going to Blast Zone it. Yep, there goes my Mutavault. To be expected. Doesn't really affect me at all. Obviously having a demon would be nice, but against what is almost certainly creatureless control, my life total is going to be comfy for a long time. Alright, Vanishing Verse gets rid of that. So they do have white, they just never saw it last game. I'm going to Liliana. Just time to get rid of their last couple of cards. Don't need all of this land. Take a Mirrex. Not hugely useful, but you know, that is a source of creatures which could theoretically like attack Liliana or something. Alright, they have Bitter Triumph to kill Liliana.
Delay, nothing more.
Second Anger is not what I want to see here. I'm going to play Fable. Plan on cycling away these Anger of the Gods in the near future. They cantrip another Cling to Dust, and cantrip another Cling to Dust. I do have a lot of those. Alright, second Blast Zone does eventually beat my Fables and one of my Shieldrids. If this Fable doesn't work well, if this Fable doesn't find me something, I don't really have card advantage at the moment, which is very worrying. Also, that's my last swamp, so if they have the mana denial plan and they have another Field of Ruin effect, it could get very awkward for me. I only have a single red source now, which means these Angers aren't even castable. Let's get rid of both Anger of the Gods. They're not looking like they're playing creatures this game. I'm going to Thoughtseize, take your last card. Alright, they are thinking. Alright, it's another Cling to Dust. And Shieldred. You should have Maze Mind Tomed in response. Alright, I think opponent is new. This is like the second time they've played into Shieldred when they could have just not done that. They have Vanishing Verse. I have another copy of Shieldred. This is why I kept both. Alright, we're going to Duress them. See what their last card is. Looks like a removal spell for Reflection. That's fine. Better that than Shieldred. Alright. You can draw another card with Maze Mind Tome. Alright, the Demolition Field is turning into Wasteland. I no longer have red mana. Alright, red mana is gone. Opponent still has to deal with Shieldred, which is not going to be trivial. Blood Tithe Harvester, not currently castable. But Shieldred is just going to kill them next turn. Like, if they have nothing, they just die to Shieldred attacks. I think even through that card, that gain 4, that's still true. They go to 6. Alright, looks like they found a Vanishing Verse. Not ideal for me. I have to grind through Cling to Dust. Okay, I find a red source, which lets me cast Blood Tithe Harvester, which is a relevant clock. And I think I pass and Blood Token end of turn. There's just so many like red spells and stuff that I can't cast immediately otherwise. Like most of the things I would want are either red or 3 mana. Alright, Candy Trail is going to gain them some life back, which at least keeps them from dying. They only have a single white source. They could put Kahira to hand, but they can't cast it. Alright, I'm going to get rid of Duress. I think they're going to be empty-handed most of the game anyway. Alright. Blackleaf Cliffs being tapped is super unfortunate because it means I can't immediately equip the blade and put them to 1. Alright. There goes that Blast Zone. I'll play another 2-drop. Alright. All instantly punished for keeping Extinction Event instead of Duress. Could have taken that card. Another Blast Zone. And a Crucible of Worlds. Alright. So that's what they're up to. They're... that's pretty good. Let's just chip in for a cheeky 3 points. And I would love to kill you. This should deal 6 and draw me 3. Alright, we got there. They very nearly... I mean, they would have had to deal with the Blade of the Oni, but they had Blast Zone to do that. And then they could have removed most of my mana sources and killed me, which would have been a very satisfying way to die. I love that kind of stuff. Fortunately for us, we managed to turn the corner with good old 5 mana deal 6. Invoke Despair is a really good card. Alright, currently waiting. Looking for another opponent. We are Diamond 1, which is, I believe, the highest I've ever been. So just get a couple more wins and we can get to Mythic. That would be cool. I do love, like, 1 extra pack at the end of the season. Alright. We get an opponent. They have a Johnny avatar, which probably doesn't mean anything. We have a great hand. We have Thoughtseize on 1, Harvester on 2, Fable on 3, or Annex on 3, depending on what we're feeling like. Alright. Opponent is up to some nonsense. I think I take just the biggest, scariest thing. Like, I'm not realistically going to beat them before they get to 5 mana, so we're going to have to deal with that Elspeth at some point. In the meantime, I'm definitely shocking this in. Do I bolt the bird? Or do I just play Blood Tithe Harvester? I think I just play Blood Tithe Harvester. They ramp out the Enduring Innocence, and I torch it, and then we're just kind of fine. They don't have any white mana, actually, so the Enduring Innocence isn't going to get ramped out. So they ramp out Paw Patch Recruit instead. Alright, I don't think we can let them have that. So let's Blood Tithe Harvester to kill one of the recruits. And let them make their targets. And I think we have to let this resolve is the way this works, because otherwise that wouldn't kill it. And now we bargain away the blood token to kill the other Paw Patch recruit and bottom anything that is not a 3rd land. Alright, if we hit a 3rd land, we're in decent shape. Although, like, we did spend a lot of resources to deal with their 1-drops, which I don't like. Alright, they shock in a white mana. And cast a 1/1 that comes with a 3/3. Alright, well, their board is definitely spooky. I think I play a red source and a Fable. So this makes their creature tokens big. Collector's Cage makes all of their stuff obnoxious to deal with. Alright, so they're just gonna... Oh! Okay, cool. Yep, just Crater Hoof Behemoth me. Fine. That's reasonable. Alright, we need Anger. We need Extinction Event. We absolutely don't need Duress. Hitotsugu Consumes All blows up like a lot of 1-drops and tokens. And I mean, we saw there, small creature blocks are not super reliable, so maybe take out Blood Tithe Harvester. Yeah, we just got there, like, they pretty much had the nut draw. There's nothing we could have done. Like, I think that draw probably, like, we could stack our deck any way we want, and I think that draw beats us. Maybe, like, Thoughtseize into Thoughtseize could disrupt that enough, but even then, like, we cast a Duress on one, and it just was not close to enough. Alright, let's keep this. It's got Disruption, it's got single target removal, it's got a sweeper. It's not amazing, but it's also not terrible. Opponent is having a long, hard think. Hopefully their hand isn't very good. Alright, we're up to this nonsense again. I think again I take the Elspeth. I have Extinction Event to deal with all the odd creatures, which will leave them with just the bat from that guy. So let's play out our lands. Alright, I don't know how we lose this game. I also don't entirely know how we win this game. But we're playing Draw Go against a creature beatdown deck, which is always going to be better for not the creature beatdown deck. So I guess they just want to Offspring the Paw Patch Recruit. Alright, Enduring Innocence. That needs to be 1-for-1, because otherwise it's going to draw them a bunch of cards. And let's play a land and go. Now they can play the rest of these guys. Paw Patch Recruit with Offspring. So that's technically a 1-drop and a 0-drop. We're just going to pass. Let them do their thing one more turn. Actually, that's also technically a 1-drop. It's a copy of the Paw Patch Recruit. Alright, another Paw Patch Recruit, again with Offspring. Alright, I think this is worth casting Hitotsugu Consumes All. Just get rid of all that nonsense. And we have Extinction Event as a secondary sweeper. I guess not as good. I probably should have done that in the other order, because this means they have 2 different types of thing. Alright, we draw an Unholy Annex, which I'm going to play on Ritual Chamber first, just get a blocker up. We can start drawing cards at any point and it'll be fine. Alright. Let's unlock that. And pass. And Extinction Event on Odd keeps our demon around, gets rid of all the evangelists, leaves them with a couple of bats. Alright, Anger of the Gods is actually much better. So let's attack with our creatures. And the Vessel of the All-Consuming is going to die. Either in combat or to the Anger of the Gods. Yeah, and we could, like, combat trick them with the Fatal Push, kill their thing, grow the Vessel, but I don't want to put this sweep off for a turn. So your board gets exiled, and I will play a Fear. and discard Fatal Push. Withering Torment is just more value at this point. Like, I have the mana for it. I'm likely to always have the mana for it. And I also have the life for it. Yeah, alright. They didn't Crater Hoof us on, like, 3 or 4. We win easily. So now we have to win a game on the draw, which is going to be much harder. Hopefully we just have another hand with infinite sweepers. Alright, we have Anger, we have Fatal Push. We don't get to duress the Elspeth this time, but it's probably good enough. I'm going to play an untapped land on one, in case they play something I need to get rid of immediately. Not an Elvish Mystic, that's fine. Alright, Thoughtseize is a little bit late, but still fine. Alright, Overlord, absolutely under no circumstances can you have that. And I think I play a land untapped. I want to torch their Enduring Innocence when they inevitably play it. If they don't play it, that's fine too. Alright, you get out of here. Torch the tower. So good in this matchup. Alright, let's play Mutavault and Fable. Emiria's Call is a million miles away from being a spell. Don't really need to worry about that. Voice of Resurgence is a thing. Let's get rid of 2 lands. Keep our handful of spells. I'm going to attack here, and if they want to trade the voice, then that is probably as good a time as any to hit Hitsugu. So get rid of all the little guys, which is just those 2. It's not the highest value Hitotsugu in the world, but it works. Overlord of the Mistmoors. It's fine, I have Withering Torment to deal with the main guy. Hitotsugu would have been nice to have after this. So let's exile their graveyard for all that it matters. Play a Blood Tithe Harvester. And pass. These 2/1s are not the most threatening in the world. Alright, they even concede. I don't know that that concede makes total sense. Like, they're doing fine-ish. If I don't have a removal spell for the Overlord, which they don't know that I do, then they have a real chance of winning in a couple turns. It's not the most unreasonable concession either, though. Like, I have a bunch of cards. I have a board state. I have Blood Tithe Harvester cheese with the Fable. Fable is just so good. Like, if it flips, there are a million unfair things you could do with it in this deck. Alright, this hand is great. We don't have second colored source for Blood Tithe Harvester, but we have an alternative 2-drop anyways, and most importantly, we have Thoughtseize on 1. Thoughtseize on 1 is, like, the thing you want to see. Alright, Indomitable Creativity. How does one beat Indomitable Creativity? I think we take 1, and then hope at some point we spike another discard spell to get rid of the other. So let's just look for that, and also a 3rd land would be nice. Alright, 3rd land achieved. Can attack and play the Fable. So they need 4 mana to cast the Indomitable Creativity, and they also need a token in play. or something in play. Alright, unable to scream is going to be their something in play. I can Fatal Push to Fizzle. That seems pretty sick. Let's get rid of those two cards. Alright, I don't draw a discard spell. I'm in fear of missing out, discard the Sulphurous Springs. And pass, because this is an O2. Now, if they try to... Alright, they get the clue token. So if they had tried to Electro Indomitable Creativity, only targeting the Unable to Scream, then I could have Fatal Pushed my own fear in response. Looks like they're not going to let that happen, though. I'm just going to kill that. It's going to be a target eventually. Alright. Do I have outs? I think my out is exactly that this blood token finds a Thoughtseize. Or Duress would be fine too. Fatal Push would not be fine. The second fear attack doesn't do anything because the fear will be tapped anyway. But if... Oh, it loses all abilities, right? So that doesn't even matter. Alright, now is presumably they'll find a fourth land and Indomitable Creativity. They have a billion looks at it. And they had it to begin with. Alright, now, can we beat X equals 1 Indomitable Creativity? Cast Atraxa, as expected. I actually have a lot of looks to beat this with the fear of missing out. And, like, it's not going to be amazing, right? But theoretically... Alright, well... We're probably going to gain them a lot of life off of Atraxa. Unless we find it, like, immediately. Which we don't. Alright. Attack again. Untap the Reflection. Tap the Reflection to make another copy. Takenuma doesn't do it either. Alright, we attack. We untap the Reflection, which we tap, targeting the fear. Alright, we have a Withering Torment. So, alright, now I guess we attack with everything and they can't block. So we'll at least reverse some of this damage. Alright, they are blocking away their Atraxa. So that's interesting. Let's make another copy of Blood Tithe Harvester to get bloods going. So now we can use Blood Tithe Harvester shenanigans to cheese them in the future. Maybe I shouldn't have attacked with the real fear of missing out so I could try again next turn, but they have Volcanic Spite, which kills the Reflection, so that wouldn't have mattered. I think just getting rid of the Atraxa is still better. They are creativitying again. Probably to get another Atraxa, or the Valgavoth. Sack 3 non-land permanents, which I can technically do. So let's target that. 1, 2, 3. Valgravoth down. And Blade of the Oni in play. Alright. Well, I don't know how we win, but Unholy Annex is probably the start. Let's get some card advantage going. And I can attack here. Volcanic Spite is an instant, so the Blade of the Oni can die, but I have Mutavaults to back it up. If I win through double Indomitable Creativity, that's going to be incredible. Alright, Prismari Command to blow up my thing. That makes sense. Does mean they still have Volcanic Spite, which sucks, but whatever. Still gaining life, drawing cards. Alright, they get a treasure. They only looted one with Fable, which means their hand is pretty good. Alright, let's play Untapped Land, unlock Ritual Chamber. So now if they kill the demon, I can still fire up Mutavault. Alright, they make a Mirex token. And I get a Fear. It's a pretty good draw. And they are down to 27. You know, if this were Commander, I'd have dealt a lot of damage to them. Alright, let's play another Unholy Annex. And eat the Spell Pierce. And probably get Spell Pierced again? No. No second Spell Pierce. Alright, let's play this land untapped. Probably doesn't matter. And I think I keep the demon back on blocks. Like, I'm planning on just outvaluing them at this point. I don't really need to, like, proactively go out and kill them. I just need to not die to mites. Alright, they have Volcanic Spite, plus another thing to kill the demon. I have another demon off of my second Ritual Chamber. Alright, double Volcanic Spite. I'm fine with them 2-for-1-ing. I'm not quite so fine with taking 2 Infect. At least I'm not taking 3. They could have activated the Reflection there. Another Unholy Annex. Pretty cool. Let's make a Ritual Chamber demon. And another Unholy Annex. Now, if this demon dies, I lose. Like, on the spot. But if it doesn't die, then oh boy. They're making another Mite. They're just going to try to infect me out at this point. That makes sense. But I am drawing a billion cards. Alright, obviously I block one of the mites. The regular damage is completely irrelevant. I'm up to 5. Alright, we have Duress to lead on to clear the way. Double lands, somewhat as expected. And let's play out a couple of blockers, shall we? Yeah, with Shieldred in play, they die too quickly. Alright, we managed to win game 1 against double resolved Electro Dominance. Liliana is good. Invoke Despair is good. These are cards that kill their giant things. They have a lot of tokens, so Hidetsugu is good. Duress and Thoughtseize are the best cards in the matchup. Fatal Pushes and Go for the Throats are fine. It's probably, like, small creatures out. Not going to do much blocking. Probably not going to do much attacking. My instant speed removal spells can fizzle an Electro Dominance, which is why I'm keeping them in. If it's only targeting a creature. If it's targeting a clue or something, then it doesn't work, but... Alright. This hand is not incredible. This hand is not incredible, but it has a turn 1 duress, and it has powerful 3-mana spells. So we keep these. We take the card your deck is named after, and we're going to have to fight through Censors and Aether Gusts. And how are we going to do that? Well, we can play around Censor pretty easily. We can play around Aether Gust by playing Unholy Annexes. Alright, they just slam a Fable. I'm going to push the Shaman. And Thoughtseize is... So if I Thoughtseize, then that's good. But I think I want to just slam the Unholy Annex and start drawing additional cards. Next turn, I can Fable the Mirror Breaker and then Thoughtseize, or Thoughtseize and then Fable. Although they have a Censor, right? No, they got rid of the Censor. Probably figure it's not very good when I know about it, which is true. So that does mean I can Thoughtseize to clear the way for the Fable. And Aether Gust doesn't stop this. That's red or green. Alright, I can't take the Aether Gust. I have to take the Indomitable Creativity. Cannot afford to lose to that. And I'm just going to run my Fable into their Aether Gust. It's going to happen eventually, may as well be now. And I will bottom it since I have a second Fable. And we get immediately rewarded by drawing an Unholy Annex, which is much better. Alright. Tap land, unfortunately, and Fable. We have this Fatal Push to kill their Reflection if they Prismari Command our Shaman, which I expect them to do. Alright, they don't do that. They make a Shark Typhoon. Okay. Well, if they Electro Dominance targeting Shark Typhoon, we can get them there. Otherwise, we're just going to have to take some beats. Do I Fatal Push the Shark token? I don't think I do. I think I have my Demon can deal with that relatively easily. I still want the Fatal Push to beat the Reflection. Alright. Now that I've drawn Shieldred, I just play Shieldred. And tap land out of the way. And let's get a treasure. If they let us attack, we get a treasure, and we can Fatal Push the Reflection. If they don't let us attack, we Fatal Push the Reflection. Alright, so we do this... Hang on. I have to be careful. I have to make sure to crack the treasure to turn on Revolt before I kill this. So now they don't get the extra Shark copy because it goes away on end step, and I'm doing this main phase. Alright, they Volcanic Spite plus Prismari Command to beat Shieldred. They do draw a card in the process, which is pretty cool. Alright, Prismari Command. Alright, is Shieldred still in play for that? Yes, she is. Good old state-based actions kill creatures. Alright, so we are down to 8, and they have a Shark. I think my my play this turn is basically forced. All right. Blade of the Oni is very risky though. For 5, 6, 7, so I can't actually do both. I can cast Blade of the Oni and unlock Ritual Chamber. So they only have one card in hand. One of these demons is going to live. I'm going to make a treasure. If they want to block, they can. Otherwise, they're going to 10. Alright. I am now officially winning the race by a lot. If they... I mean, even if they Electro Dominance, like, I'm still in a great spot. Alright. They're drawing their cards, making a treasure. Alright, the Indomitable Creativity X equals 1 to find Portal to Phyrexia. Alright. 3 creatures down, but I still win. Okay, that's actually not technically true. So let's obviously attack, they'll chump block. And they can reanimate a thing. Do they even have a thing to reanimate? Not really. Like, they can just reanimate small stuff. So let's play out the board. And put them to 2. I could have killed them, actually, if I had kept the Blade of the Oni, because it has Menace. Alright, they can reanimate a Shieldred, that works. But they're still at 4. They still lose to the 6/6 flyer. Alright, you love to see it. We managed to beat Electro Dominance, including through the Electro Dominance, like they resolved it both times, and we just overpowered them. That feels pretty good. One more win. One more win and we get Mythic. Has a single person ever non-sarcastically said, I have a good experience with my ISP? So the problem with that, right, is it's something you never think about unless it's a problem. Like, if you think about it, most ISPs work perfectly fine the vast majority of the time. You just never think about them existing unless they're causing problems. Which, to be fair, certain ISPs cause lots of problems probably more frequently than they should. Alright, well, we're playing against Black-White. Hello, the average Texan. We're playing against Black-White. This is probably Ketramos, if I had to guess. Let's just play out our stuff and pass. Alright. I'm perfectly happy making this trade. So obviously they get their lifelink, but... Alright, Liliana of the Veil is pretty good.
No more distractions. Let's make this quick.
You're trying to port forward, but they won't let you unless you pay? That's rough. That seems a bit unreasonable. Like, it is a basic feature. Alright, do I kill Liliana, or do I slam Unholy Annex? If I had a treasure, I could do both, but I don't. I think I kill Liliana before any funny business happens. Like, I don't want that card sticking around at all, if I can help it. Alright, Unstoppable Slasher. How do I beat Unstoppable Slasher? Am I just going to be taking a hit from an Unstoppable Slasher this game? Is that what's going to happen? I think that's what's going to happen. Alright. So I could blood token into a torch the tower. All right, we got there. So that is artifact, enchantment, or token to bargain. So I could bargain away my reflection to kill the slasher, which I guess is worth it. Obviously taking 2 there from the Unholy Annex. Let them go to combat. And actually I'll go to blocks just in case. Alright, sack the reflection, torch the slasher. Please don't have any way of giving it +1/+1. Alright, duress is a fantastic draw. Alright, Vanishing Verse is great for them. And an Overlord of the Balemerc, which means they get back Liliana. Well, I have this duress. Ah, okay, this is not great. I think I take the Invoke Despair, let them have the Liliana. It's kind of awful either way around. But theoretically, Mutavault could attack the Liliana, whereas the Invoke Despair just completely wrecks me no matter what I do. Alright, so they get the Liliana, they plus it, we each discard a card. Goodbye, basic swamp. Goodbye, opponent's basic swamp. So we can attack the Liliana to 2 here and then torch it. Alright. Technically treading water here. So this Overlord is the looming problem, and Sheoldred's Edict in hand doesn't help. Sheoldred in hand doesn't help either. Yikes. I don't think we win this one now. Yeah, so, like, if I draw a removal spell, I beat the Sheoldred, but then the Overlord shows up. I think if they play one more reasonable card and I draw one more land, I definitely concede. Even if I don't draw a land, I still probably concede. Second Overlord is almost certainly the game. So they can get back Aetherborn and play it. And the Overlord is coming back in a bit, and I draw another land. Alright, bit of a brutal game. Yeah, sometimes you draw lands. It definitely would be better if you didn't, but sometimes you do. Alright, taking the Graveyard Hate for Overlord reasons. Invoke Despair is great. Reckoner Bankbuster is fine. Now I have too many cards and not enough cards to take out. I guess they have a lot of creatures, so Duress can probably go. Thoughtseize is probably not incredible. Fatal Push goes. We need more answers to the Slasher. Withering Torment out for Anoint with Affliction, maybe? No, probably Anger of the Gods is better. I don't know. This is one of those games where, like, every card in our deck is kind of okay against them, which makes sideboarding difficult. Alright, this hand functions, I guess. We've got spells to play. So let's lead on Blood Tithe Harvester, since I don't really know what I want to discard with the fear of missing out quite yet. Gets Fatal Pushed. We get to do this fun little 1-for-1 value exchange. They have an Overlord of the Balemerc, because of course they do, and they find a billion goodies. Alright, Invoke Despair is promising for the future. Fable of the Mirror Breaker hopefully will find me some way of dealing with the Slasher. Alright, I need to get rid of everything that doesn't beat Unstoppable Slasher. Okay, that's not good. We didn't find the thing, or we didn't find a land. We didn't find a way of beating the Slasher either. So I guess we just attack in to make a treasure, play another Fable. And we have to chump block the Slasher, because I don't want my life total to be halved. And they have another Slasher. Alright, Anger of the Gods. I have a lot of looks at Anger of the Gods. Alright. Discard up to 2 cards. Don't draw Anger. I can Invoke Despair is not terrible here. We get rid of one of the Slashers temporarily, and we get rid of the Overlord. So this doesn't solve the problem, but it buys time. Alright, we get Thought Seized. We lose Liliana. That's brutal. We still have Shieldred. I think I have to let my life total get halved here, go to 9. And let's get rid of one of these Blood Crypts. Please just find an Anger of the Gods. Alright, it's not Anger of the Gods. I do have Shieldred. Shieldred is pretty good. So I can double block one of the Slashers to temporarily deal with it. Shieldred can gain me some life back. Or I could trade Shieldred for a Slasher temporarily. Alright, Meat Hook Massacre is brutal, but Shieldred lives, and they don't attack. Well, the Invoke Despairs will continue. Another Slasher temporarily dealt with. Massacre out of the way. I draw 1 card, which is not Anger of the Gods. Play out my Mutavault. Do I have to block the Slasher with Shieldred? I think I do. I think I simply can't afford to go to, like, 4 or whatever. Yeah, Meat Hook Massacre is a very cool card. Alright, they have their own Shieldred. That is brutal. Alright, well I have another Shieldred. I have an Unlicensed Terse, which doesn't really do anything right now. Alright, so our Shieldreds theoretically trade. If they have a removal spell for my Shieldred, I lose instantly. They do. Alright. Well, I had like a third of my deck to find one of 2 copies of Anger of the Gods, or I think I also had the other sweeper in there that exiles, and I just didn't find any of them. Sometimes that's how it goes. Alright, this hand is very disruptive. I don't know how I'm winning the game with this hand, but I'm pretty sure I'm not going to be losing the game with this hand. So, we'll find something out. It's Burn, which is the exact kind of deck you want this hand against. And I'll take Light up the stage because it is card advantage for them. Now, Withering Torment is simply not a spell. Like, it just doesn't exist. I'm going to play a tap land because shocking in would be insane. Hello. Hello, the average Texan. Yeah. No problem. Twitch does weird things sometimes. Alright, Swift Spear is coming in hot. Soulscar Mage, also a thing. Alright, Fatal Push. The Swift Spear. If only I had another red source. So I can get rid of that Soulscar Mage, but then not do anything this turn. So they get the Etching of Kumano, which they can Monstrous Rage onto and make me very sad if they want. Yeah, I'm surprised too. They might have been playing around me having a Fatal Push, which was a smart play of theirs because I did have the Fatal Push. And I would be in a much better spot if I didn't have to worry about Monstrous Rage. Seems like they did that again. I think at that point that's too much. I think at that point you have to play it. Now I have to pass and hold up Withering Torment. Because Withering Torment is not great. But at least I'm not getting Monstrous Raged. They play another Soulscar Mage. I can't just, like, keep taking damage, right? I have to actually use this Withering Torment at some point. Feels bad that I'm doing it post-combat, but... yeah. Alright, I have a Go for the Throat. Yeah, that's... what? 3 copies of Soulscar Mage, right? Yep. They probably run 4, so they have one more. They have one more, we'll see if they draw it. And top deck Go for the Throat is fantastic, because they're going to want a Monstrous Rage to get through this Blood Tithe Harvester. Or they Wizard's Lightning and don't have to. Alright. At this point, they do Monstrous Rage. Which one is it targeting? The one on the left. So let's get rid of that one real quick before that happens. Alright, now we are at 9, and we just need to deal with Soulscar Mage and 2 Ramunap Ruins. Do I play Mutavault as potentially a blocker? I think I Blood Token it away. I already have a Mutavault. Alright, Unholy Annex is huge. So I play that. I fire up the Mutavault, and now I gain life and draw a card. And I can't deal with the Soulscar Mage this turn, but I can start putting blockers up next turn. And I'm up to 11. Alright, down to 9. Mutavault blocks would not have worked. And they concede. Alright. We managed to steal game 1. Now, they sure do have a lot of 1-mana creatures. Hitotsugu Consumes All comes in. Anger the Gods comes in. Let's see here. Thoughtseize is obviously atrocious. Withering Torment is terrible. Anoint with Affliction is probably good enough. Are any of these cards things that I want? Liliana of the Veil, maybe, but not really. Reckoner Bankbuster is very, very slow. Extinction Event could sweep them. Yeah. That's why on turn 1 I duressed their Light Up the Stage. Just gotta make them run out of gas. And yeah, it's also why I don't personally like playing aggro. Like, give me the mid-range decks all day, every day. This hand has a Sheoldred in it, so if I can live, if I can live to 4, which is a big ask, then we stabilize very easily. All right, Gitu Lava Runner. Are they wizards? Yeah, they're not even like conventional mono red. They're straight up wizards. Okay. I think I'll take 1 unless they fire off a spell here. I'm not doing much for the next couple of turns, and I need to be able to Fatal Push something in response to Monstrous Rage. The Legacy Vice and Rack, is that like 8 Rack, I assume? Similar, at least? Because 8 Rack is incredibly fun. I guess get rid of one of the Fables. Alright, we find Hidetsugu Consumes All. That is a huge win for us, assuming they don't somehow win here. If Fear of Missing Out can stall for long enough, Hidetsugu Consumes All is going to be devastating next turn. Alright. They do have Light Up the Stage. Do they Wizard's Lightning or Monastery Swift Spear? Alright. They Wizard's Lightning. It's the original 8 Rack. Yeah, that's cool. I definitely love 8 Rack. Let's play Mutavault and consume all of their Hidetsugus. So they don't have any creatures currently. They have this Monastery Swift Spear that they could play. Notably not a Wizard, so Wizard Lightning is not currently discounted. Alright, I go to 9. I exile all graveyards, which actually does technically matter a little bit. Play a land on red. Tap out for Shieldred. Legacy Death and Taxes is really fun. And it always has been. Like, it's one of those decks that just sticks around. Alright. Back up to 1 win away from the next rank, which I'm pretty sure is Mythic. Alright. Easy win, Shieldred versus a red aggressive deck that doesn't have... what's that one card? Screaming Nemesis. Screaming Nemesis and Sunspine Lynx are very annoying, but if they don't have them, Shieldred just sort of single-handedly wins. Alright, this opponent has a vampire avatar. We'll see if they're playing vampires. Okay, this hand is fine. If this were literally any other land, it would be a great hand, but it's a tap land, which means we don't get to go duress on 1 into 2 into 3. Oh, and it's Yorion. Hate to see it. This deck normally does pretty poorly against most Yorion decks, in my experience. Alright, we're going to play Fear of Missing Out and discard... Alright. Get Lost. Instantly. You should never do that. Make me make my decision first. I think I still get rid of Fatal Push. Alright, I find an untapped black source, which means I can go double duress next turn if I want. Screaming Nemesis is so annoying. Like, if... There are so many things where if it just wasn't that way, it would be fine. Like, if Screaming Nemesis didn't have haste, it would be an entirely reasonable card. If Screaming Nemesis didn't turn off life gain permanently, it would be an entirely reasonable card. It's just like, if it were like a 2/2 or something, it would be at least somewhat reasonable, but it just has to be everything. Alright. They add Yorion to hand. Yeah, it's ridiculous. I don't know why they made it that way. They definitely shouldn't have. Alright, well, I'm going to put in an Unholy Annex and start gaining some life. And we're going to have to grind through all these Leyline Bindings and Yorion flickering Leyline Bindings, but we have Withering Torment. So let's just do that real quick. And then play a Blade of the Oni. Oh, right, this Leyline Binding interacts stupidly with Unholy Annex, and I always forget that it does that. I have to unlock it. Alright, let's do some unlocking. And play a Fear of Missing Out, discarding a Fatal Push. Opponent has definitely the worst of the overlords in play. It is still an overlord, though. Alright, there's Yorion flickering all their stuff. Now they get their overlord back as a creature. They get to Leyline Binding my Unholy Annex again. The overlord technically trades with the Blade of the Oni, so that's an option. We could also make a 6/6 demon, that's an option. But they have an Atraxa coming. Alright, let's Thoughtseize them and see what's going on. Alright, Zur is unbeatable, so we pretty much have to take that. And Ritual Chamber, just to prevent them from having good attacks. What happened to Domain Overlords? I don't know. It still shows up sometimes. There's like... I don't know. I feel like it's probably just dies to the red decks. Like, can you imagine trying to play Overlord of the Flood Pits and Zert and like all this stuff when your opponent is playing Screaming Nemesis? Like, I imagine that's what happened. Is that one tournament where like basically everyone was mono red and everyone who had a bad matchup against mono red was like, maybe I should switch decks. All right. Well, I have no idea how I'm going to win this game. Opponent just sort of has infinite value. Yeah, I'm just dead on board, right? Yeah, okay. This matchup is pretty hard. Invoke Despair in, Liliana in. They frequently will have large-ish creatures, so Liliana's probably fine. Extinction Event deals with their board relatively well. Esper Pixie is an interesting deck. Alright, let's get rid of mostly small creature removal. I guess we bring in Reckoner Bankbuster. It can technically attack. We need ways of beating Zur, which is a 1/4. So it's a 3-mana 1/4. Anoint with Affliction is probably the best option for that. And they have lots of creatures, so Duress is probably not super reliable. But it's probably still fine enough to have a couple copies in. Like they have the Enigmatic Incarnation that we can take, which is very important. Let's try this. Would Damping Sphere be useful? I don't think so. Like, they don't normally tap their lands for more than 1 mana, and they're typically the sort of deck that casts 1 big spell per turn. Like, they're not casting 3 spells a turn mostly, so I think Damping Sphere is probably not doing much of anything. Alright, we have our turn 1 Thoughtseize. We probably just take the Overlord. Like, the Leyline Binding is annoying, but the Overlord is, like, actually the way they win. So hopefully they just, like, Leyline Binding this Blood Tithe Harvester, and then I slam Shieldred. Alright, let's see. No 3-mana play, unfortunately. It's normally not the problem this deck has, but this time we have 4s and 5s. Alright, they Leyline Binding the Harvester. So this Invoke Despair could, in principle, kill that Leyline Binding in the future. Alright, Up the Beanstalk is very good for them. We are going to get rid of... I need black sources for Invoke Despair, so I think we get rid of Sokenzan. Alright, second Invoke Despair is pretty good. Free Shieldred? What do you mean Free Shieldred? I don't quite follow that one. Alright. Well, we get to start casting Evoke Despairs. We get our 4/4 back from their Skyclave Apparition, and we get our Bloodtithe Harvester back. Alright. Well, we did it. We cast Invoke Despair once, and they gave up. Let's run it back. You love to see it. Alright. Let's try to win just one game on the draw. He leylined the Bloodtithe. Yeah. Yep, they frequently have multiple pieces of interaction. Alright, we have Thoughtseize on 1. Potentially go for the Throat on 2, although I don't expect them to give me targets for it. And then bunch of busted cards on 3 and up. Alright. Knight of Autumn, Overlord of the Hauntwoods, Leyline Binding. These cards are all very good. I think I take Knight of Autumn, because it is a creature and blows up one of my enchantments. Alright. They play another Indantha Triome, play a tap land. And the next turn I'll play Fable, because I don't want to get my Annex bindinged. Much rather have that happen to a Fable. Alright, they tap out for Overlord as expected. Blackcleave Cliffs is untapped this turn only. Now that they've ramped, I think we're in a pretty bad spot. But it's not completely unwinnable. If they use the Leyline Binding here proactively, then Annex might carry us to victory. Alright, they just Fatal Push. They have their Everywhere land. Alright, I think we get rid of Extinction Event and a Pathway. And keep the Go for the Throat, because it deals with one of these guys. Keep the Unholy Annex, because like they have to deal with it eventually. So I think I Fear of Missing Out, get rid of tap land versus red source. I think we get rid of the tap land here and play Pathway on red. I think my plan is, since I know they have the Leyline Binding, I'm going to want to just make a demon off of this. Alright, they have Enigmatic Incarnation. They get to do the thing, turn their Overlord into something good. And hopefully, whatever they get, I just instantly go for the Throat and it's fine. Takes my Fear of Missing Out along the way, but not terrible. It lets me use my mana this turn, which is nice. Alright, we actually draw something incredible. So we Thoughtseize you. Now we can take the Leyline Binding and actually stick this Annex long term. Or they use the Leyline Binding on the Reflection, obviously, and I take the Yorion. Linvala the Preserver doesn't actually... I'm just going to take Yorion. Not think too hard about it. They're going to gain life off of Linvala, but that's fine. They're at 18 anyway. Alright, now they turn their Leyline Binding into something busted. Which is Atraxa, but I get my Fable back, which is nice. Is it good enough to beat Atraxa? Probably not. But it's also possible. Earlier today, I beat an Electro Dominance opponent who got Atraxa and then got Valagavoth, and I won that game. So it's definitely possible. Although this Atraxa got much better hits than that one did, so Well, we're going to get rid of the 2 lands that don't have effects stapled to them and draw 2 more lands. Cool. That's reasonable. That's what I wanted to see, actually. I wanted to draw lands. Definitely. Well, we're going to channel Takenuma and get a Fear of Missing Out. And get rid of the Sokenzan. Alright, we find a Sheoldred. Probably too little too late. They have Zur coming down to turn all of their stuff into Death Touch, Lifelink, Hexproof 4/4s and such. Why does this give so many keywords? Like, couldn't this just not give keywords? Or maybe just like 1 keyword? Why does it have to give 3 keywords? I don't understand that. Alright. And they turn their Enigmatic Incarnation into a 4/4 with every keyword you could ever ask for. I guess I double block it and get Leyline Binding, right? I forgot they have the mana for that. And then I assume I just don't draw anything relevant and die. Correct. Alright, they have lethal probably, somehow. I guess Sheoldred can chump block, but eh. Alright, well, we have again made it to 1 win away from Mythic and again lost. We get an actually vaguely playable rare as our ICR, so that's not something you normally see. Cruel Somniphage is not amazing, but it is technically like people have played it, which is more than you can say for most ICRs. Alright, Zero Lander. Alright, this hand is quite good. We have turn 1 Thoughtseize and Torch the Tower, and then a bunch of high power stuff. Let's get rid of... let's get rid of the Verge and just assume we draw a 3rd land because I am the greediest man alive. I like my 3 mana spells. Okay, it's mono black again. If I take Invoke Despair, they Thoughtseize my Unholy Annex. I think I take Thoughtseize here. Leaving them with the Invoke Despair is awful, but... Alright, no need to leave them with the Invoke Despair. You love to see it. I'm just going to take that real quick, play my 2nd land, and please let me top deck a untapped land. I think every land in my deck is untapped at this phase of the game. Alright, we get there. And double Fatal Push means having a demon in play long term is going to be very difficult. So we're going to lead on Fable. Don't want to mess with our life total too much at the moment. We're going to take the damage from the Aetherborn and then probably torch it next turn. Alright, they're looking like they're going to Fatal Push the Goblin Shaman, which is 1 Fatal Push down, but they might not do that. Alright, they have a Mutavault and attack. No blocks. I just want them to have to use their Fatal Pushes here. Alright, that's 1 Fatal Push. There's Blade of the Oni. I think do I discard the Fable of the Mirrorbreaker, or do I discard the Unholy Annex? I think I discard 2nd Fable. Alright, Duress is definitely a good payoff for keeping that. Take the Fatal Push, and now we're just going to torch the Blade. I think we can trade something with the Aetherborn at some point. And the blade does more damage, and it has Menace, and I don't have to sack my Fable to take it. This Field of Ruin stops my Mutavault, which remains quite awkward. Guys, I still don't know how I'm ever getting a demon to stick. I'll float mana. Not that it matters, but they don't know that. Alright, they have duress. That's brutal. I'll torch the Blade of the Oni. And then their duress takes my Unholy NX. And then I probably just lose to the Gifted Aetherborn. I don't know. I probably top deck something. I have lots of cards that deal with a 2/3 Death Touch. Fable of the Mirror Breaker technically deals with a 2/3 Death Touch. I can double block. Alright. Let's... Hopefully they just draw a basic land. They fire up the Mutavault and go all attacking. Yeah, I think we get the Aetherborn out of the way here. Alright, Unholy Annex is great if I live, but I'm at 8. I don't think I can realistically... I'm at 8 and they have a Mutavault. I don't think I can keep it, unfortunately. Like, then I go to 6, they attack me to 4, and then I have to have something that turn exactly or I die. Doesn't seem like a good idea. Alright, well, we hit a bunch of lands, so I would have been able to use the other side of the Ritual Chamber. Yeah, I just have to take the block here, get their last creature out of the way, and now we top deck until someone hits something good. You are not bad magic luck. This happens sometimes. It happens all the time. Alright. Well, they take our Fatal Push. We play Blade of the Oni. I assume their last card is a removal spell. Alright. Mutavault is substantially better than any other land we could have drawn. It's still pretty bad. And they have Graveyard Trespasser, which is hard to beat. Not impossible to beat. I could get another Unholy Annex, or like a Blood Tithe Harvester or something. Withering Torment doesn't do it because this guy has Ward. And I have to chump block the Graveyard Glutton. Meanwhile, they found a Castle Lock Thwain. So if I chump block the Graveyard Glutton, I draw another card, I Withering Torment, kill it. Technically not dead. But they have 24 life and Castle Lock Thwain, so I think they're just going to grind this game out. Right, they only exile one creature. Wait, no, not. Don't tap the Mutavault. Activate the Mutavault. Pass to blockers. Player blocks. Alright, that's better. So if their last card is not a removal spell, this potentially wins me the game. If it is a removal spell, who cares? I was never winning that game anyway. But they don't have fantastic attacks. Actually, if there are 2 creatures in the bin, there's not a creature there. There's not a creature there. Alright, Graveyard Glutton trigger doesn't do any damage. Which means if they don't have a removal spell, I go to 2. No, the Mutavault has Summoning Sickness, so if they don't have a removal spell, I don't take any damage. Oh, Sheoldred. That's beautiful. Alright, can't do it immediately, but Unholy Annex unlock. No attacks. Draw a card, gain 2 life. And it's a Fatal Push. Alright, that's big. So now even if they kill my demon, I still have a removal spell for the Graveyard Glutton. They have another Mutavault. I think they still can't do anything this turn unless they have a removal spell. In which case I kill the Graveyard Glutton, untap, and play Shieldred. Alright, Blade of the Oni has Menace, but otherwise isn't much of a problem. Castle Lock Thwain drawing them a card every turn is a bit of a problem. So Shieldred gains me a lot of life. Like, I go to 10. Alright. Fear of Missing Out would be incredible if I had another land. I don't have another land, but I do have a Shieldred. So we're going to play that and pass, and go to 10. And now I have multiple blockers for the Graveyard Glutton, and a Fatal Push, and enough cards that it's not a problem. Alright, Murderous Rider kills Shieldred. That's fine. I will Fatal Push the Graveyard Glutton either end of turn or if they do anything funny. Alright, they are spending 3 mana. Probably Murderous Rider. No, they have their own Unholy Annex. I have Withering Torment to deal with that. That's what Withering Torment is doing now. Alright, they fire up the Mutavault, and they're making a big attack, I guess. This seems fine for me. Like, now I get to kill the Graveyard Glutton without using Fatal Push on it, and I can Fatal Push the Blade of the Oni. Alright. Pass to blockers. Block there. Before damage, kill the Blade. Take 4, go to 5. Take another couple to 3. Alright, Duress your last card. It's a Go for the Throat. That would have beaten me. Alright, I'm at 3. If I Withering Torment their Unholy Annex, I go to 1. Then I need multiple blockers, but I have the Fear of Missing Out as another blocker. Alright, so I have 2 blockers. And I'm passing and going to 3. Oh, I think we probably win this one. They top deck another Unholy Annex. And I don't just die to that, but it's definitely not ideal. So I go to 1. Blood Tithe Harvester can get me a redraw at something useful. So let's see if we can turn this Blackleaf Cliffs into anything. It's also just an additional blocker. Alright, Shieldred, but we don't quite have the mana for it. That is lifelink, right? Alright, not attacking into that. I'm just going to play out my Blade of the Oni. And no attacks. Draw a card. I should probably be I should have attacked with the demon this turn. I have enough ground blockers. I guess having one more is good for safety. Yeah, Liliana the Veil. So glad I kept back.
Happy to help.
Alright, discarding.
Sacrifices must be made.
Discarding Fear of Missing Out, since it doesn't block Murderous Rider well. They make a demon of their own. And then we pass. I go to 1. I can play Shieldred. If they have a removal spell for Shieldred, then I'm doomed. Do I play the Blood Tithe Harvester, or do I open myself up to draw a 2-mana spell? I think I think I played the Blood Tithe Harvester to give myself an additional blocker. Alright, we pass. Now, if they have a removal spell... Alright, I drew the 2-mana spell, which means if they have a removal spell for my demon, I lose this game off of that mistake. If they don't have a removal spell for the demon, I think I win comfortably. Alright, Graveyard Trespasser would have killed me last turn, but doesn't kill me this turn. I go to 4. Gifted Aetherborn, not super relevant.
I'm tired of your
Discard the Fable. The Fatal Push, killing their demon, is the most important thing. And if we can untap, we gain enough life that we're no longer under imminent threat of dying. And then I think we just snowball from there, hopefully. Alright, they attack. I'm obviously going to trade demons. So I have a Blade of the Oni still. They have a Mutavault still. They mess up. They don't activate their Mutavault, which is 2 free life for me. That is, like, staggeringly good. Alright. Let's Fatal Push the Aetherborn. Let's discard this Thoughtseize. I still don't have the life to cast it. Alright, we draw Go for the Throat. So we go for the Throat, kill the Murderous Rider. Now our Blade of the Oni can kill Liliana. Or... I guess that's not even true. They can fire up a Mutavault or 2. I think we pass again. I really thought I could kill the Liliana this turn, but apparently not. So now they can exchange the Liliana for a Blood Tithe Harvester, or they can take this Mutavault out of my hand. I didn't realize they would be taking so much damage, actually. I probably could have just swung all at them and either killed them or forced them to chump block. I didn't realize they were going to 5. I have not been playing super well with regards to the life totals this game. Alright. Rest in peace, Blood Tithe Harvester.
Off you go.
You trade with a Liliana. Alright, they have a removal spell for Sheoldred finally. And they have another Liliana of the Veil.
Those who get in my
Gross.
way tend to regret it.
Alright, do they plus or minus? If they plus, we're fine. If they minus, we're not fine. Alright, goodbye, Blood Tithe Harvester.
Haven't you ever heard of personal space?
This is game 1, by the way. We've been going for ages, and this is still game 1. Oh, what a game. I have 25 cards, they have 27 left. We're both through more than half of our decks. Castle Lockthwain activation seems aggressive here. They don't have that much life. So they go to 2 off of that, and they need to fire up a Mutavault now to not die. And Blade of the Oni has Menace, which means it's harder to block. Alright, so they fire up Mutavault. They're not gonna forget 2 turns in a row. And they go up to 4, and I go down to 10. I draw another land. I'm gonna play my Mutavault. If I attack with Blade of the Oni, if they want to block, they would need to lose either their Graveyard Trespasser or their Mutavault. They have 2 Mutavaults, though. I think we leave Blade of the Oni for next turn. We can, like, fire up Mutavault, equip the Blade, and then have a 5/5 Menace, which seems pretty good. The Graveyard Glutton flips. Nothing I can do about that. Oh no, my spells!
You won't be outsmarted.
Goodbye, Blackleaf Cliffs. Opponent has a swamp as well. Alright. Oh, a second Ritual Chamber. And I assume they're also going to unlock it, which means I think we lose this game somehow. They just kept top decking Unholy Annexes. Like, they drew 3 Unholy Annexes, I drew 1 in the top. Okay, technically there's another one in the bin. But, yeah, they drew more Unholy Annexes than me, so I lose. And I can't block this, otherwise I don't have a demon. So I just have to go to 6. And then they go to 8 and I go to 2. Yeah, they don't need to fire up the Mutavault this turn. They have a demon. Alright, I go to 2 life. They go to 8. I get a stupid Blood Tithe Harvester, which I will cast. And use the blood to see if I find anything. I don't know what it would need to be at this point. It's another land. And I have died. Alright, that was a marathon game 1. So we can bring in a bunch of good sideboard cards. Let's see. They don't have Graveyard Recursion. They have the Trespasser, which isn't really Graveyard Recursion. Extinction Event is good. Duresses and Thoughtseizes take Annexes, which is like the center of the entire matchup. Let's get rid of... some creatures, maybe. Let's get rid of 2 Blood Tithe Harvester. Withering Torment kills Annexes. And let's get rid of Torch the Tower and 2 Fatal Pushes. So we need to get into more high impact cards. Like the random 1-for-1 removal spells are fine, but they're not sweepers, they're not card advantage engines, and they don't take annexes either. Alright, post-board game, we have a Liliana, which hopefully our Liliana will exist and theirs won't. Alright, waiting for them to sideboard. Alright, their sideboarding is taking a while. So, while we're waiting for them to sideboard, make sure to follow if you haven't already. It means a lot. I play Magic the Gathering on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 2 to 5. And Satisfactory Monday, Wednesday, Friday, same time. Alright. And they finished sideboarding. This hand does very little. Alright, this hand is much better. We're going to bottom a Blood Tithe Harvester and just slam high impact cards until we win, hopefully. We don't have a Thoughtseize on 1, which is like the biggest deal ever. But they don't either, so it's probably fine. Fear of Missing Out, get rid of... Withering Torment is our answer to their Fear of Missing Out. Invoke Despair does that as well, though. Alright, we hit a 3rd land. That's the important part. And we get Fatal Pushed. Alright. Turn 3, Unholy Annex. Please let me drag it into play. Turn 3 Unholy Annex. Will it be good enough? We find a Liliana. I want a 4th land for this Shieldred. Do they also have a turn 3 Unholy Annex? I would not be surprised if they did. Alright, they have nothing. I also have nothing, but I do get a Thoughtseize. Okay, their hand is nuts. I guess we... How do we ever beat Shieldred? How do we ever beat Invoke Despair? I think we have to take Invoke Despair and just Liliana beats Shieldred, I guess. And we need to keep Liliana now. So we have to discard and Invoke Despair, which is a huge sign for them about the quality of our hand. The Murderous Rider are Fear, as one would expect them to. We find another spell that is not a 4th land. They have their Shieldred. Alright, we get our 4th land, not quite on time, but close enough. Liliana takes away their Shieldred. And once again, we are behind on life total. This time we are significantly ahead on cards, though. And we have Shieldred. We have Shieldred, although their Liliana can kill the Shieldred. Alright. Ritual Chamber just gets Fatal pushed. And they also only have 1 card in hand, so Liliana Plus takes that. Obviously going to get rid of Thoughtseize now that they have nothing. And Shieldred stabilizes the life situation from the Annex. So I stay at 8. And they top deck an Invoke Despair. Are you kidding me? Of all of the top decks they could have possibly gotten, it was the literal single optimal one after I already took one from them. That's outrageous. Alright, then they just play out the Murderous Rider. Alright, let's kill the Murderous Rider real quick. Put that to the bottom of its owner's library. And I think we have to discard both. We need action. Oh, cool, lands. That's what I wanted, right? I wish I kept the Sokenzan. So we can attack them with the Goblin Shaman and eventually the Fable. Alright, they have Liliana. Because of course they do. There goes my Goblin Shaman. I need to top deck a powerful card, like an Unholy Annex. How about a Blackleaf Cliffs? Alright, Reflection can attack and kill Liliana next turn. And it also turns a lot of my worst top decks into much better ones. Like, Fear of Missing Out is crazy here. Alright, Liliana Plus doesn't matter. Get rid of an extra land. They get rid of an extra land. Alright, Invoke Despair, Fear of Missing Out, Unholy Annex. These are all fantastic draws. They top deck another Unholy Annex. Because of course. They are just the luckiest person on the planet. Now I go to 4 and I top deck another land. And I concede. Yeah. That was just, like, I think if draws are average, like, if after, like, turn 3 or 4, draws are average, I win 99% of the time. Like, I drew only lands for many turns in a row. They drew only the best cards in their deck for many turns in a row. And, like, even after all of that, if I had... like, they were only, like, one really good top deck away from the game still being even after all of that. But they just had to draw another Unholy Annex. And alright, we have double Thoughtseize on Holy Annex. This hand is great. We're going to lead on the Verge because it doesn't hurt us to do. It's green-white tokens, flicker, I guess. Oh, we're going to take the Overlord. And then probably the Skyclave Apparition. Alright, so we can Fatal Push the Llanowar Elves. Shock in. And take either Aven Interrupter or Skyclave Apparition. I think Skyclave Apparition. Aven Interrupter temporarily stops our powerful enchantments. The Skyclave Apparition permanently does. Alright, we don't hit a third land. Because obviously not. Speaking of not hitting third lands, yeah, that previous game was also one where we were mana screwed for a turn, and then we flooded out. Okay. So Aven Interrupter, they're not going to cast that until they have something to do with it. They're probably just going to play the Displacer, which Torch the Tower doesn't answer because I don't have a token in play because I didn't get to play Fable the Mirror Breaker last turn. How about another 3-drop? Alright, there goes the Displacer that I can't do anything about. Alright, well, I'm going to cast Thoughtseize. And why do they have 2 Collected Companies? Why did they top deck 2 Collected Companies? I'm going to take one. I'm going to take one and pass the turn, and they're going to top deck a land. Alright, it's a tap land at least. So they don't get to do their crazy stuff this turn. Now I'm under infinite pressure, so I don't get to Unholy Annex. They have the Aven Interrupter to stop my Fable of the Mirror Breaker. And now I go to 7. Alright, well, we're gonna kill their board and hope they whiff on their Collected Company. Alright, they kind of whiffed on their Collected Company. I'm going to kill the Displacer. Now, we're still in a lot of trouble because they have 2 Aven Interrupters in play, which is 4 power in the air. And they also still have the Overlord of the Mistmoors. So I die here. I don't have anything. Yeah, I don't have sweepers in the main deck. So unfortunately, we just got unlucky. Alright, we bring in all the sweepers. Hidetsugu Consumes All is probably fine. Extinction Event is actively good. Invoke Despair is decent. Duress does very little. Their deck is mostly creatures. Speaking of creatures, Blood Tithe Harvester is very bad. It doesn't block most things. And I'm not the beatdown in this matchup. Let's cut... Let's see, what else do I want to cut? 1 Fear of Missing Out. It's also not great. At least it cycles. Alright. On the play. 0 interaction hand. Alright. Infinite interaction hand, but 1 land. I think we keep this. We keep this and hope to get lucky. We need to draw a second land. Wandering Emperor, Collected Company, Llanowar Elves. And take Collected Company. Wandering Emperor is a problem, but not as much as Collected Company. Alright, well, I use my mana, I Fatal Push the Llanowar Elves, and then I emote and hopefully draw a red source? Nope. How about another 3-drop? Alright, they have an Enduring Innocence. I find a red source. So I get to play my Fear of Missing Out, which is very, very good here. All of these cards are great. Shieldred is the slowest and the least likely to have the lands to happen. Alright, so they have a Llanowar Elves, which draws them a card because of Enduring Innocence. Alright, we rip a Thoughtseize. Let's take another Collected Company that they've inevitably drawn. Alright, they didn't. So I'm going to take Wandering Emperor. And play a tap land and go. We are up to 3 mana, which means we're doing decently. They Llanowar Elves into Llanowar Elves. I still don't have Revolt, so I can't even temporarily kill the Enduring Innocence. Alright, Skyclave Apparition takes my fear of missing out. And I think there's only one reasonable thing to do here. Let them go to attacks. Push the Apparition, get my 2/2 back. Trade with the Enduring Innocence. So now they get that as an enchantment, which is probably fine. Let's see. Fable of the Mirror Breaker gives me mana more consistently because I just need the Goblin Shaman to live. It also makes a blocker and doesn't hurt my life total in a relatively aggressive matchup. Alright, so they have Caretaker's Talent. No tokens currently. They have Archon of Remeria to draw a card. I'm going to decline. I think my hand is pretty good. Ah. Archon of Remeria. Right, okay, well, I just did 2 points of damage to myself for no reason. And I'm going to do another 2 with Unholy Annex. And we are just going to... I think next turn we make a treasure and just unlock, get a 6/6. Although they have Ride's End, so I don't really want to do that. I'd much rather them kill... I think I'd rather them kill my Shieldred than the Demon, because the Demon is a flying blocker for the Archon. And also gains me life with Unholy Annex, whereas Shieldred just makes it net neutral. Alright, so we get another ground blocker. Yeah, I think I play Shieldred here. Aven Interrupter is brutal. So now I don't get my Shieldred. They draw a card. And now I go to 8. And I'm definitely losing this game. Like, even if I recast a Shieldred, they Ride's End it. If I Demon, they Ride's End that. And they have me on a 2-turn clock. So I need to top deck a Sweeper. If I top deck Anger of the Gods, then we're chillin'. Otherwise, I just sort of die. So I go to 4. Alright, does Go for the Throat change anything? I have 5 mana, so I can't Shieldred the... I can't Go for the Throat the Aven Interrupter and play Shieldred and unlock the Ritual Chamber. But let's Go for the Throat the Aven Interrupter anyway. And if we get Aven Interrupted again, then we lose. Of course, they had to have multiples of it. Alright, another brutal defeat. We almost came back from a 1-lander where we missed our second land a couple times, but we did not. Let's try to actually win a game for once. We've gotten sort of bulldozed the last couple matches. I would like to turn that around. Alright. We have Thoughtseize on 1. We have Fatal Push. We're not dying, and we have 2 Unholy Annexes, so this is fine. What in the world? Alright, is this some sort of... This has got to be Lotus Field, right? That's what the Sylvan Scryings are for. I'm going to take one of them. This has got to be Lotus Field. Like, they're going to Sylvan Scrying, reveal a Lotus Field, and then somehow break parity. Yep. Oh, no, Sunken Citadel. Alright, Sunken Citadel is not Lotus Field. So that's something. Under fear of missing out, discard a land, and just slam a couple Unholy Annexes and hope to bulldoze them. I guess Castle Garenbrig with Sunken Citadel is pretty good ramp. It's not amazing, though. Like, I'm not entirely sure what their plan is. They're in Diamond, so, like, it's not awful. But they look like they have way too many giant creatures. Alright, there's the Carnage Tyrant, which has hexproof, so I can't do anything about. Well, I'm going to take Vaultborn Tyrant, because that card is unbeatable. I'm going to play another Unholy Annex and try to just draw my way out of this. If I lose to Timmy here, that's going to be kind of sad. But I have the ability to make multiple 6/6 demons, which can trade with a Carnage Tyrant. So let's Mutavault, make a demon. I guess I'm never blocking with fear of missing out, probably. Alright, now we get to drain them and go up to 7. So they can Galta here and put the Sire of 7 Deaths into play. And I will trade my demon for their Carnage Tyrant. Alright, do these have Trample? They have Menace. That has Trample. Feeling pretty dead. I'm going to make another 6/6. And leave everything back on defense. And discard some cards to hand size. But I just take 1 billion damage here. Yep, they attack and I die. Alright, we are playing against Timmy. Extinction Event is great. It sweeps them. Liliana is great at killing one big creature. Damping Sphere is crucial to shutting off their shenanigans. Let's see. Fatal Push probably does literal nothing. Duress probably does very little. Invoke Despair at least kills a big creature. Alright, let's try this. If we can't win 2 games in a row against Timmy, then that's going to be very sad. Alright, we have turn 1 Thoughtseize. We have our annexes. Opponent is mulliganing. Alright, Thoughtseize you. Alright, they have Regisaur Alpha, which is a smaller dinosaur than usual. Or we could take the Commune. Let's take Regisaur Alpha. It also puts multiple bodies in play, which is good against my Unholy Annex. Alright, let's play a Sokenzan. And probably just going to play Pathways on black for the rest of the game. So they have Commune to find another Sunken Citadel. I would love to find... I would love to find a Damping Sphere at any point. That would shut all this nonsense down. We do get a Thoughtseize, which I'm definitely going to cast next turn. And an Extinction Event, which is incredibly thematic. I'm going to take the Regisaur Alpha for the same reason I took it last time. It makes multiple bodies, which is good against Invoke Despair. Alright, we find Damping Sphere. We also find Torch the Tower, which is still in the deck for some reason. So starting next turn, we make a demon. Destroy all enchantments. Well, that's incredibly rude. In that case, I don't feel bad about being incredibly rude back. I'm going to play Damping Sphere. Your deck doesn't work. So you currently have 5 mana. Archdruid's Charm. Alright, what if I did it again? Now, at some point, I need to actually get an advantage engine rolling. Let's see. Carnage Tyrant and Sire both sort of need to be Invoke Despair targets. Like, they're gonna get to 6 mana in a moment, and I need Invoke Despair to get rid of one of them, and then Extinction Event to get rid of the other. Alright, Liliana is huge, because I can play Liliana and start plussing, get rid of this stupid Torch the Tower,
Happy to help.
and now their next big dinosaur is useless, because I have Liliana. Alright, Carnage Tyrant. And I think I use Invoke Despair here, because this draws me cards, including more Invoke Despairs. And then I will plus Liliana, get rid of
Drop it.
a Blade of the Oni, and get rid of one of their last cards, which is another Commune. Alright, let's plus Liliana again. We are at the point of Ultimate.
We all have things we'd rather forget.
And I think I get rid of Withering Torment. There's just no guarantee. Like, lots of their stuff has protection. Alright, we took a Galta. I'm going to Invoke Despair again. Draw some more. Find another Invoke Despair. Feels pretty good. And then I don't think I get greedy. They have Vaultborn Tyrant. I don't think I get greedy. I think I just Invoke Despair a third time, take the Vaultborn Tyrant. They get their token. Oh, that's technically an artifact. That's funny. Alright, I am going to Liliana minus. Alright, so as far as piles go, you get
Tough choice.
4 lands or 3 lands in the Vaultborn Tyrant. And I've split up the Citadels and Castle Garenbriggs, so that should be fine. The Vaultborn Tyrant could do decent work against me, but I can also just like play a Bloodtithe Harvester to chump block for 1 turn and then Extinction Event next turn. Alright, so this will save me 2 life if need be. Alright, they have Sylvan Scrying, so they're not going to completely shut out on lands. But I think I just go to 4 here. This way I have a creature to attack with. That's 7, which means it's odd. Which means I say that. Goodbye, Vaultborn Tyrant. Hello, Sheoldred. Hello, 3 points of damage. And now they're only at 4 mana, so they can't even do all that much. Alright, we win a game against Timmy. A little bit closer than I would have liked. Torch the Tower can go out. That's not hitting anything. Bankbuster in. I guess a Duress back in. We can. There are some hits for Duress in there. And just like 1 mana Learn Your Hand isn't the worst thing ever either. Alright, this is great. We have Thoughtseize, Damping Sphere, Liliana. They can commune with dinosaurs all they like. We're just gonna... If they find a good one, we're just gonna take it. Alright, there's Vaultborn Tyrant. Play attack on Numa and a Thoughtseize. Alright, Back to Nature actually doesn't do much with this hand. Sylvan Scrying is their 4th land drop, and they don't have a Sunken Citadel. And they have 2 giant guys. Let's take the Sylvan Scrying. Alright, we find an Invoke Despair, which is huge. Just an additional answer that doesn't lose to protection, for the most part. Alright. Unholy Annex is also great. I think we Unholy Annex before Liliana, so that we have more stuff that we can be comfortable discarding to Liliana. This does obviously mean that we deplete their resources more slowly. Alright, let's play Untapped Black Land, Liliana of the Veil, and plus, they don't seem to have much haste.
Enough with the mysteries.
Alright, get rid of Blood Tithe Harvester. They lose Galta. And I will fire up Mutavault. So they can Back to Nature to kill my Unholy Annex. But they let me draw a card, which I would not have done. They're trying to get a 2-for-1 with the Back to Nature, which seems like an atrocious decision. Alright, their Archdruid's Charm for a land, not even to kill my Unholy Annex. That also seems great for me. Alright, let's play a land, make a giant demon, and plus get rid of Blood Crypt. Probably going to draw more lands over the course of the game. There goes another Galta. Now, I have Extinction Event to deal with the Vaultborn Tyrant permanently instead of them getting it back. Of course, it would be great if I didn't have to do that. I'm going to plus get rid of the Withering Torment. Liliana is up to 6. I think with Liliana at 6, I just invoke Despair. I should have done this first. Just draw my 3 cards, deal them a bunch of damage. And attack. Alright, opponent is at 4. They lost their opportunity to cast Back to Nature again. Yeah, so I get my trigger though, which is all that matters. I draw a card, they go to 2. And they shouldn't have a way of beating a 6/6 flyer. Alright, we managed to win 2 games in a row against Little Timmy. Back up to Diamond 1 after a bit of a losing streak. Alright, and another one. Alright, currently waiting. Currently waiting. Yeah. It's not really surprising that we beat Little Timmy, but it does feel good, especially after we lost game 1. Those are the matchups where if you lose, it's real bad, because those are the ones that are supposed to be your free wins. Alright, opponent has a Kaito avatar. Let's see if they're playing ninjas. We have a Zerolander. Alright. They have Yorion. I have 3 Fatal Pushes. I'm going to bottom one of the Fatal Pushes. Thoughtseize on 1. Okay, this is Bring to Niv. We're going to take the Bring to Light. And probably die because they have infinite interaction. So we can fear of missing out to get rid of one of these fatal pushes and try to find a third land. So far, no third land. They have a Sylvan Caryatid, which blocks. I don't find a third land. I do find a Thoughtseize. And I guess I have to take up the Beanstalk. And this might be a game where we're both stuck on mana. Although, nope, they top deck it, because of course they do. It's tapped, so the Omnath doesn't show up immediately. Alright. Opponent is thinking hard. They don't have castable spells. I guess they could Vanishing Verse me. Alright, I'll fix your mana a little bit and play a Fable. So I don't think fixing their mana matters. They already had a Swamp. They have Vanishing Verse my Fable. Alright, they have cleverly tapped out of their Sylvan Caryatid so that they could take 2 damage for literally no reason. Like, they could have just waited till end step. It does literally nothing. Alright, there's Omnath. I can Fatal Push the Omnath with Revolt from the treasure token. Alright, so we go to combat, we attack. Leyline Binding gives me Revolt anyways. Alright, you get out of here. And I will play a Blood Tithe Harvester, which actually can attack into the Sylvan Caryatid. And now I get Deafening Clarion, because they have that too. Okay, no, it's somehow worse than that. They have up the Beanstalk. And another land. And also Deafening Clarion if they want. No, they add Yorion to hand. I'm going to get rid of this pathway because I don't need 5th land. I need action. Find 5th land anyway. Classic. I'll attack you down to 13, which is not a low enough life total to mean much of anything. They can Yorion, Blink, Binding, and Beanstalk. The Binding took the Goblin Shaman, I think, which is why there's nothing under it. Yeah, at this point there's no reason to Deafening Clarion, like, Yorion is just much better. Alright, they tap 5 manually before casting Yorion. I don't know why they need specifically Savai Triome available. Oh, they just wanted to tap the Sylvan Caryatid because it was going to come back. That makes sense. Alright, they take my Fear of Missing Out and draw another card. I draw another Blood Tithe Harvester, which does nothing. And we pass. So I can turn that blood into a redraw. So I have 2 looks at an impactful spell, but my opponent has 6 cards in hand and is ahead on board and has a card advantage engine. So I imagine I'm going to concede to them doing anything. Like, if I don't top deck exactly Unholy Annex, I concede on the spot. If I do top deck Unholy Annex, they Leyline Binding it and I concede on the spot. Alright, they have Bring to Light. I'm going to see what they get and then concede. Probably Giant Niv Mizzet or maybe an Omnath. Alright, it's Maelstrom Pulse for some reason. That's much worse than Niv Mizzet or Omnath. They could have just Deafening Clarioned if they wanted to kill my board. I mean, it's still going to be good enough. Like, it doesn't matter. They won this game a turn or two ago, but there's no reason for them to take Maelstrom Pulse there. And now they're roping. Very cool. Let's see, this is best of 3. I could clock them. Alright, no, they're not roping. They're just thinking. Alright, we have Pathway, which we will discard. Blade of the Oni is not good enough. Alright. So it's Bring to Niv. We need Invoke Despairs. Liliana is fine. Anger of the Gods can kill a Sylvan Caryatid. They have Omnaths and such, so we need Extinction Events. They don't add tons of mana. Let's bring out Fatal Push and Torch the Tower, because they don't really have small creatures. And bring out 1 Blood Tithe Harvester, because, like, we don't want to have no small creatures, because Beatdown is one of the ways we get them, but it's not really likely to work. Like, we saw that game. They had just infinite interaction. All right, we're going to keep this. It's Blood Tithe Harvester into Unholy Annex, into Extinction Event, into Invoke Despair. I would love a Thoughtseize, but this is still fine. Alright, Blood Crypt tapped. They play Triome tapped. Alright, Duress right on time. I'm not going to play it probably for multiple turns. I think that might make me play Fable on 3, assuming I hit my 3rd land. Yeah, so I think now I am going to attack and play Fable of the Mirror Breaker, because the Goblin Shaman could give me the extra mana to do multiple things in a turn. Alright, they use a Fatal Push. And now I have a Goblin Shaman. And they shock themselves, which is worrying. It means they have a powerful 3 mana ability. Like you saw last turn, they were willing to Fatal Push like in combat to save life. Now apparently they don't care. I'm going to discard 2 Sweepers. Find a 3rd. And let's try to go to combat. Get Lightning Helixed. Alright, now we Duress. Take... It's gotta be Bring to Light, right? None of these cards actually deal with Unholy Annex. So I think we take Bring to Light, slam Unholy Annex, and start drawing cards and hope that's good enough. Invoke Despair next turn. Just trades with a Fable, which is probably fine still. Like, their hand is kind of clunky, and trading with their discard spell and drawing me a card seems pretty good. Alright, buy Fable. And we find some lands. Alright, they get a tap land. And probably Kolaghan's Command, Reflection to kill it. They could also Deafening Clarion. Alright, Kolaghan's Command. I will discard a Sulphurous Springs. Alright, Fear of Missing Out would have been crazy with the Fable. Didn't happen. Let's get rid of the Anger of the Gods. Not looking likely to happen. And play the Fable. And play a tap land. I could have shocked myself in... I should have shocked myself in and fired up the Mutavault. That would have been 2 points of damage to them. And net neutral on my own life total. Alright, they're manually tapping for what looks like Deafening Clarion. Which makes total sense here, of course. Yep. There goes my board. Alright, I think the only... I won't go for the Throat to deal with the creature. Sheoldred is fantastic. Let's slam Shieldred. Fire up the Mutavault, go to attacks. They probably don't... They have one card which could deal with the Mutavault. Alright, it is successful. Annoying, but not the end of the world. They are up to 22, though. Down to 20. Now they have Niv Mizzet, right? They probably have 5 colors. They have a lot of triomes. Alright, hoping for a whiff. Alright, they find Elenda and Lightning Helix. That's fine. So we go for the throw at the Niv Mizzet, so that Invoke Despair can take the Elenda next turn, because that's hexproof from instants. Actually, we have multiple Invoke Despairs. Let's just fire these guys off. Take your Niv Mizzet, draw me 2 cards, deal you 2. Alright, I can play a tap land here while I have the opportunity. And swing for 4. Alright, I'm feeling very, very good about this game. Elenda doesn't make a bunch of bodies, right? Not that kind of vampire. They have another Lightning Helix. Alright, they top deck Bring to Light for Sunfall. Alright, that's honestly not the worst. Like, it's obviously very good, but I still have... Alright, second Unholy Annex would not give me a demon. So I make a demon and play Blood Tithe Harvester and ping you to 8. And I have second Unholy Annex in my back pocket. Up the Beanstalk is not what they want to see. I think we win this one. Alright, Cornucopia can mean they gain a lot of life off of the Lightning Helix. So we're going to attack in. They target the Blood Tithe Harvester, of course. They gain a lot of life. And then I think they die. So this puts them to 3. And second Unholy Annex deals 4 to them. Alright, they go to -1 and die. We got there. Good old Invoke Despair. What a messed up card. Just kill all of your best stuff, draw me multiple cards, drain you. It does a lot in a lot of matchups. Alright, let's win game 3 on the draw, which is going to be very difficult. Opponent is going to choose to play first. They're apparently AFK. There's no reason to think over this decision. It is trivial. It's so trivial that like other games don't even give you the option and no one cares. It's always better to go first. That's technically not true. There are some very, very niche situations. Like, I don't know, you're playing Dredge and you go draw, go turn 1, go to discard, put a Dredger in the bin. But aside from that, that's the only situation I can think of where on the draw is preferable. Alright, opponent apparently just left, which means I guess we're going to get our win. The rope has popped up, which... Alright, they made their decision eventually. We obviously mulligan a hand with no colored sources, and I think we obviously keep this. We bottom Anger of the Gods. Frankly, I should have probably not sideboarded it in. Alright, they have Fabled Passage on one. I have Duress. Let's see what you are up to. Nahiri the Harbinger. Target enchantment, tapped artifact, or tapped creature. Discard a card, -8, win the game. Alright, I'm going to take Fable. I'm going to take Fable, and I'm just going to, like, attack the Nahiri or something, probably. They have a Sylvan Caryatid, but Blade of the Oni has Menace. Alright, let's make sure we have all of our black sources for Invoke Despair. We have a red source in our hand, so that's fine. They could slam Nahiri, which wouldn't be amazing for them. So they +6. Alright, they don't slam Nahiri. I'm going to play an untapped land, take their Sylvan Caryatid.
Those who get in my way tend to regret it.
Alright, Nahiri is actually kind of annoying. It has a lot more loyalty than I sort of anticipated it having. I think we pass. Because Blade of the Oni would have to be tapped for Nahiri to exile it. So this just denies that from doing anything immediately. And the next turn we're just gonna... If they do play the Nahiri and plus, I'll just attack her and play Sheoldred. Otherwise I'm just gonna play Sheoldred anyway. Alright, they play another Caryatid. Well, I'm just gonna play Sheoldred. And plus Liliana, discarding Fear of Missing Out. Alright. And attack them with Menace. So now if they play Nahiri and kill the Blade, then Invoke Despair will kill the Nahiri as well as the Sylvan Caryatid. So I would be fine with them playing Nahiri this turn. Also Nahiri minus, even if I don't hit the land for Invoke Despair, Nahiri minus to kill the Blade leaves her vulnerable to Sheoldred. Right. I'm not feeling super comfortable this matchup, but it's also seems like I'm ahead. They are thinking they could just play Yorion, I guess, and then I would draw an untapped land, Invoke Despair, Liliana minus, clear their board. Alright, they played Bring to Light instead, which is going to find a Niv Mizzet. Alright, we need an untapped land. If we hit an untapped land, we're in pretty good shape. If we don't hit an untapped land, we are in a world of hurt. Alright, untapped land successful. Alright, so get rid of your Sylvan Caryatid and deal a bunch of damage. And incidentally gave me a lot of life. Liliana will trade for the Niv Mizzet, that's fine. And then I will punch in down to 4. Alright, well, here we are. This is the situation we find ourselves in. Opponent is at 2. They could Nahiri... If they Nahiri to kill Sheoldred, they die to Blade of the Oni. If they Lightning Helix the Blade of the Oni, they die to Sheoldred. They can Knight of Autumn gain 4, I guess. And then chump block with it. That seems bad. I think their life total is just too low here, and I have a Menace creature. So they could go land, Lightning Helix, the Blade of the Oni, Kolaghan's. They could go land, Lightning Helix plus Kolaghan's Command to wipe my board. If they have an untapped land, which their deck is not amazing at. And also if they have the colors, which they have a basic island. And that would be red-white. Alright, their Knight of Autumn blow up blade or gain 4 and chump block. Alright, they do gain 4. They're tapped down, right? Alright, I'm gonna play Mutavault. So this kills them approximately. So that it has Menace, they go to 1, and then they can... They don't have a way of dealing with Sheoldred immediately, which means they have to draw a card and die. Alright, that was a satisfying little puzzle to win the game. Alright. Probably just one more match for the day, which means we're not hitting Mythic today. Alright, opponent is also Diamond 1. It has the Veteran Explorer tag. Alright, we have a Zero Lander, easy mulligan. No colored sources, easy mulligan. We're keeping Duress, Fatal Push 3 lands, and let's top deck some spells. Alright, we top deck a Blade of the Oni, which is a spell. Our Duress takes their Bring Delight, which is pretty good. Alright, go for the Throat. Can answer a Elish Norn. But this is not a matchup where we want to be messing around with, like, value trades. We need to kill them fast, and this hand just doesn't do that. And like, we mulliganed twice, so we didn't really have a choice. But we were really hoping this was like Pixie or something. Alright, go for the Throat U. Another land. Probably, like, I assume they have something, probably. Even if they don't have something, they have Yorion. Alright, Fable, the Mirror Breaker gains them a life. Ancient Cornucopia is, like, really awkward, but weirdly strong. Alright, they shock in and put Yorion to hand. I'm going to use a Fatal Push while it has a useful target. And I'm going to Fear of Missing Out, get rid of this other Fatal Push. Turn it into a Mutavault, which is better than nothing. And we attack. Alright, we have decent threats. We can make Fear of Missing Out a 5/5 Menace with the Blade of the Oni. We would do that if they play the Yorion. Obviously, they could have a Sweeper here. They have Bring Delight, so they probably have... I'd probably get a Sweeper here, maybe. No, they're just going big with Niv Mizzet, gaining 5. Yeah, I can't beat this, assuming it draws another Bring Delight and an Abrupt Decay and some other stuff too. Yeah. Blade of the Oni, Fear of Missing Out is never going to beat that, not when they're at 16. Let's bring in Invoke Despair, Liliana. Okay, what else? Reckoner Bankbuster, I guess. Extinction Event deals with the big things. Fatal Pushes and Torch the Towers have almost no text. Alright. We're going to have to get quite lucky to win 2 games in a row against Bring Delight. But it could happen. I think it happened last game. So, you never know. Alright, we have Duress into Thoughtseize into Withering Torment. We can definitely disrupt them. We don't have a clock, though. Alright, their hand is kind of bad, but we're going to take the Bring Delight and then take Leyline Binding next turn. Alright, we're going to take Ancient Cornucopia instead. Slows them down slightly more. Play Mutavault. Probably never going to activate it unless they tap out of Leyline Binding for some reason. Alright, well we have Unholy Annex. It's going to get Leyline Bindinged. Just immediately, they have like the 2 perfect triomes. So I can Withering Torment a Leyline Binding to get the Annex back, but then they Leyline Binding it again. Alright, I think I have to take up the Beanstalk now. So I have to Withering Torment that, and just let them durdle as long as they're not getting card advantage out of it. I mean, I'm going to lose this game, because you never win against this deck under these circumstances. But it's better than definitely losing if they can do all that with up the Beanstalk. And Leyline Binding on Mutavault is probably good for me. So I'm just going to give them the opportunity to do that, or at least deal some points of damage. Takenuma has no targets at the moment, unless I just get lucky and spike one off of its own mill. Alright, they top deck to Bring to Light, which is going to give them their Niv Mizzet, which is... they gain life off of that. What are they getting? Oh, they're getting Tibalt. Cool. Yeah, you never beat a Tibalt. Like, even if you have a board advantage, you still normally don't beat a Tibalt, and on an empty board it's hopeless. Alright, we're going to do one more since that was quick. Yep, this hand is fine. I mean, we're playing mono black this hand, but it's a good mono black hand, so we'll take it. Alright, turn 1 Thoughtseize. What do you have? Alright, it's approximately a mirror. Do I take Duress or do I take Shieldred? I have 2 reasonable 3-mana spells, and Shieldred is very, very scary. I think I take Duress. Like, I have a ton of removal. I'm probably going to find a way to kill Shieldred. Alright, Fatal Push. Cool. That's a way of killing Shieldred. I would need to get Revolt, but I can get Revolt in a number of ways. Alright, so I just need to find a red source is my primary concern. Alright, red source achieved. So if I play Fable of the Mirror Breaker now, that gives me the best odds of beating Shieldred. This gives me 2 additional looks, and it gives me a Goblin Shaman. It gives me a Goblin Shaman that can give me a treasure to Revolt and kill Shieldred. So this solves that problem, and then I can Unholy Annex next turn. The opponent is thinking hard. I'll get my Goblin Shaman, and I'll attack for 3. I'll attack for 3. Every point of damage matters sometimes. Sometimes it's a blowout and it's irrelevant. Sometimes it matters a lot. Alright, they fire off Go for the Throat on the Shaman. I think I get rid of 2 lands here. Second Mutavault is probably good, but unknown cards are also probably good. Opponent is very, very slow, which is a bit annoying since I was hoping for this to be a quicker match. Alright, we hit a Withering Torment. That's fantastic. So I'm going to run out my Unholy Annex. And now I just sort of have everything. I have a Demon. If they kill the Blade, I have another one. I have a Withering Torment to deal with Shieldred on untap step. And I have card advantage engines and life gain engines. And my opponent is doing a whole lot of nothing. Alright, I'm up to 20, opponent is down to 12. Yep. Untap. Withering Torment you. You don't get any triggers. Now we draw. Torch the tower. Not bad at all. Reflection flips. So this fear of missing out will be great next turn if we need to. And assuming the reflection lives. But I think we're almost unlosable from this point. Opponent agrees. They had 3 lands in hand and I took their dress. So let's bring in some good cards. Extinction Event and Reckoner Bankbuster. And bring out probably small creatures and Fatal Pushes. No, Torch the Towers over Fatal Pushes. Fatal Push can deal with Shieldred, whereas Torch the Tower can never deal with Shieldred. So let's just do that. Alright. Currently waiting. Opponent is sideboarding. Taking a bit longer than I did, which is fine, as long as they don't take too much longer. I'd really rather not get roped. Alright, let's see here. Is anything interesting happening on the internet? Apparently not. Alright. Opponent has spent, at this point, almost the full time sideboarding. Hopefully they're just agonizing over some tough calls and they haven't left. Alright. We're getting into the game. And we're going to figure out real quick whether opponent is here or not. Alright, they are here. Cool. Triple discard spell, Invoke Despair. You know what? Sure. Why not? I imagine they take Invoke Despair, since it's the only one that actually does anything. I'm going to lead on a Thoughtseize in case they have all creatures. Alright, Fatal Push. So obviously not going to take Kroxa. I'm going to take the Unholy Annex first. And then next turn, I'm going to take the Fable. Do I get rid of a land here? I think I can afford to do that. It deals 3 to me, but that's fine. Alright. Good thing I kept all of my discard magic. I'm at 13. If I hit a 3rd land, I get to start doing powerful stuff. My opponent does not get to do powerful stuff unless they top deck. They top deck the 3rd copy of Unholy Annex. Brutal. Alright, do they have a demon? No, they don't really. Let's play Fable of the Mirror Breaker first. The The Goblin Shaman opens up Invoke Despair next turn in theory, although they just have a Fatal Push for it. And a Thoughtseize. That's brutal. Just opponent top decked the perfects after getting discarded spell 3 times in the first 2 turns of the game. Alright, I think I have to keep Invoke Despair. Like, that's the way I come back from this situation. So I'll play a tap land, attack in with the Mutavault, and pass. If I draw another untapped land next turn, then we're fine. Although Kroxa exists now, so I'm going to lose the Invoke Despair this turn if they do that. And it looks like they are. Just brutal. Alright, I lose my Invoke Despair. I'll just top deck another one. And somehow simultaneously top deck a way of dealing with Kroxa and the Annex. How about a land? Would have been great if they didn't have Kroxa. So, at this point, they make a demon, and I just die. Okay. I'm never beating them from here. Not with Kroxa in play. Let's bring in Anoint with Affliction and 2 Unlicensed Terse. And bring out 3 Fatal Pushes. So I'm better equipped now to deal with Kroxa, and I just need them not to draw all... I just need them not to draw 3 copies of Unholy Annex in, like, the game where I take all of their good cards. Like, I should have won that game so easily if they hadn't gotten lucky with their top decks. Alright, keeping turn 1 Duress. Fatal Push, Thoughtseize. Take the Thoughtseize. They have Kroxa and Bloodtithe Harvester. Neither of which are a huge concern. Liliana of the Veil deals with the Bloodtithe Harvester. Alright, another Duress. Take the Withering Torment, obviously, and play a tap land. And I think Alright, I slam Liliana, sack the Bloodtithe Harvester. Not much of a choice there. There's obviously... Liliana is going to turn their Kroxa on relatively quickly, but we're just going to have to deal with that somehow. And hope they didn't top deck an Unholy Annex. Alright, I'm going to get rid of Sulphurous Springs. I need my spells in order to win this game. Alright, Fable of the Mirrorbreaker gives me the maximum looks at a way of dealing with Kroxa. And I have single red. I think I'll get double red. And then pass, not activating Liliana this turn. Because I have a good card in hand, and they probably have lands that they're fine discarding. Alright, they lose the Fatal Push, which means the odds of Goblin Shaman working go up. Just kidding, they have another one. And that means they have Mutavault to kill Liliana. Alright, Blade of the Oni is actually pretty good. Do I need to dig for a way of beating Kroxa? I think I do. So I can play a tap land here, and the fear of missing out. And I have to make the decision on that land before playing the fear, unfortunately. I would love to, like, oh, I drew an Unholy Annex, let's play it. Alright. They have an Invoke Despair, which is devastating. I just continue to draw lands. Opponent has 5, I have 6, and I'm pretty sure I discarded a land or 2 at some point. Alright, there's the Kroxa. We're out of time for Unlicensed Terse to beat that. Now I need the removal spell. Alright, Extinction Event works. Kroxa is 2 mana. I'm going to name even. Alright, we reset so that we're only very far behind instead of extremely far behind. They have a fear of missing out, which is fantastic for them, of course. And they have a land, and they can fire up the Mutavault and attack. Oh, no need. No need. They just have another Invoke Despair. Okay, well, I can Reckoner Bankbuster, draw a card, and then die. Okay. Well, opponent got very lucky again. I sideboarded a whole bunch of cards in that were very good against them in that situation, and never drew any of them. Alright. It is 4:57. I'm going to end the stream here. Thanks everyone for hanging out. I will be back tomorrow playing Magic the Gathering. No, wait, no. Magic the Gathering was today. I'm going to be back tomorrow playing Satisfactory from 2 to 5 Eastern Time, as usual. Magic will be returning on Tuesday. Make sure to follow if you haven't already, and I will see you guys then. Bye.